Meeting started.
Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to our Cabinet meeting on Wednesday, the 5th of May. It's good to see you all here today. So the first item is apologies, and we've got apologies from Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Leader.
Okay. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declaration to make? Oh, okay, thank you. So item number 3 on our agenda today then are the minutes from our March Cabinet meeting, and these can be found on pages 3 to 16 of the packs that we've got in front of us today. Sorry, March, 7th of April, sorry. That's my mistake. Have all members had access to the minutes of the last meeting?
Yeah. Yeah.
Members content to move these as a true record?
Happy to move those, Leader.
Thank you very much. Move on then to item 4 on our agenda today, and this is our policy review of the comments and complaints policy and unacceptable actions by complainants policy. And members, we've all had an opportunity to read these. They're on pages 17 to 82 of the packs that we have today. So just to provide some context for this then, colleagues, the Council has had a clear policy in place that explains how we manage feedback from residents for a number of years now. There's been a number of recent changes to key legislation that affect how we listen and learn from residents. The primary driver for the amendments is to reflect the Public Services Ombudsman Wales Act 2019. In September 2020, the Ombudsman wrote to all local authorities to confirm that the revised Statement of Principles, Model Complaint Handling Process and Guidance were in full effect. The Ombudsman requested that public bodies reflect on how their practices and procedures comply with the updated guidance and how they will ensure that all complaints are captured appropriately. The key changes to the policy include changes to the reporting and monitoring arrangements, updated definitions of roles and responsibilities for the management of complaints, increased clarity on the arrangements for managing complaints regarding partners and service providers commissioned by the Council to provide services, and increased signposting to advocacy and support services. The updated reporting and monitoring arrangements also reflect the requirements of the Local Governance and Elections Wales Act 2021, which came into effect on the 1st of April 2021. The statutory function of the new Governance and Audit Committees include reviewing and assessing the Council's ability to handle complaints effectively and to report on and make recommendations in this respect. In addition to the Ombudsman's requirements, there have been other changes to legislation that concern complaints handling, which have been reflected in the updated policy. These changes to the policy are concerned with making it clear to residents how complaints in these specific areas are dealt with, including signposting, to access further help and support. There's also been some minor changes to the policy regarding unacceptable actions by complainants. Whilst we are committed to dealing with all complaints equitably, comprehensively and in a timely manner, we do not expect staff or elected members to tolerate abusive, offensive or threatening behaviour. In some cases, unreasonable behaviour can also impede the investigation of the individual's complaint or can have a significant resource issue for the Council. The policy confirms the arrangements in place to address these issues in a confidential, fair and objective manner via a forum that meets on a regular basis to review these cases and agree any appropriate action within the remit of the policy. The policy also reflects the fact that not all unacceptable behaviour is in relation to complaints. So colleagues, today we're asked to consider and endorse the revised compliments, comments and complaints policy and the new unacceptable actions by customers policy to be introduced from the 10th of May 2021 in order to meet statutory and legislative requirements. So colleagues, that's the policy framework that we have before us today that we're being asked to agree. Would anybody like to comment? Councillor Mayor.
Thank you, Lead. I think you've covered everything very comprehensively there. A couple of things I'd like to say. Number one, we've always been very good at handling any issues that arise. And very, very rarely do they actually proceed to the Ombudsman because of that. A lot of the stuff, Councillor Cochrane and I and others have, for many years, have been concerned about the fact that the only thing you could do is to complain to the council. You know, that was the only policy that we had, and it's changing now and reflecting stuff that we've been complaining about for a long that we've been suggesting for a long time, and that is that most of the stuff that comes in is not actually complaints. It's either a request for information or it's a compliment. But there was never any way that we record this. And what is happening now is that we are encouraging everyone to record any positive comments as well as complaints, because it's good for the council, it's good for our council officers to know that we are held in esteem and not, you know, we always see as the complaints, and there's a tendency to think everybody's having a go at us, which is not the case in the least. So thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Mayor, and you raised a really important point there, that how the value of that feedback to us. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Leader. Having looked at the new complaints policy, I need to commend it for being very open and transparent and easy to understand. It's there to be understood, so a member of the public, if they've got an issue or concern, they can look at that complaint policy and clearly understand where the directions where they're going to be signposted to as to follow up that complaint. Now you have to commend officers for their clarity in writing and how they've put this forward, and they've certainly taken on board the comments made by the Ombudsman. But what I specifically want to focus on is that in relation to our equalities assessment and looking at Future and Wellbeing and Generations Act, we've clearly undertaken and considered where a complaint has been made, have those specific issues been taken into consideration? Is it fair? Is it equitable? Has there been a racist comment made? If a decision is taken, would it have an impact on a different aspect of the community, and therefore would that decision become unfair? And I think it has to be commended. These components have actually been put into the complaints process to ensure that any outcome from a complaint is fair and equitable for every resident in Newport. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Davis, for that. Councillor Cochrane.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. It's really to endorse what the last two speakers have said, actually, and certainly taking on board what Dave was saying. At least now I think compliments have moved up the agenda. For years it was all about complaints, and I think this is where I think in some respects the law needs to be changed, or some guidance from Welsh Government to say, you know, we need to start recording it, because whatever happens, if someone gets on the phone and records a complaint, it's recorded clearly. But a compliment sometimes is just, oh, thank you very much, and it puts the phone down. And we're not that good at recording sometimes. I know my wife, when she worked at Torvine as an OT, the numerous letters she had of getting someone a disabled shower or something like that for them, you know, it was. And I said, well, what happens to her? And she said, well, we just accept it. And I just think we need to do something more. I think, and I say we are moving in the right direction, but maybe it's something that from the chief executive, heads of service, and all service managers need to start telling staff, look, you need to start recording it and then putting it down, and even if it's just a phone call, and thank you very much for what you've done, whether it's social services, whether it's highways, filling the potholes, whatever it is, we need to start recording in a better manner, really. I know it's the guidance is not there, but I think it's the well-being for all the staff as well to know that they're doing a good job. And I think we are moving in the right direction, but I think it needs to be moved forward even more now. And maybe that can come from the chief executive right down to all the staff. Thank you, Leader.
That's great. Thank you, Councillor Cochrane. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Truman. You're on mute, Ray.
Oh, sorry, Leader. I was going to say, yeah, I concur with my colleagues, and as you say, for many years we obviously have complaints and we would deal with them, but we used to ask questions such as, well, what are we doing right? Did we ever get any feedback from residents we're doing things right? I think we did, but we didn't. It wasn't set down to record it, but it's in the format now, and that's so it should be, because yes, if you have a complaint, we got to work with that and proceed to do that. But if there's, and we got to learn from that complaint. But if it's the same with a compliment, if we're doing something right, let's share that practice. Let's see what we're doing right. Perhaps we can do it a bit better than we're doing it. That sort of thing. So we can all learn from that, and you can encapsulate all the other things as well. Yes, it's right for things to be recorded. Complaints have got to be recorded and dealt with, but certainly compliments as well, because believe it or not, council do get things right. They don't always get things wrong, like some people say that we do, but we also do things right as well. So I think it's right that should be in the policy as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Would anybody else like to comment on that? Councillor Rahman.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to pick up on a few points that colleagues have picked up on as well, and obviously endorse what they're saying. I mean, the idea around this policy, around the sort of complaints aspect, is giving every citizen the right to be heard, understood and respected. I mean, it goes to show how this authority is changing. We've become more open, transparent and willing to listen to our residents as well, whether it's a compliment they have to make or a complaint. Just picking up on Councillor Deb Davis's point there with regards to taking into context the Wellbeing Future Regeneration and Future Generations Act there. I think a key aspect of all of this is, now that we're looking at prevention, that the fact that the authority will be putting resources into place in preventing problems occurring or getting worse, and that just goes to show the commitment and forward thinking of this authority, now that we're able to put resources in key areas like we did with the budget, but also now with this policy review. But it just all goes back to the main point I made at the start, that it's about listening to our residents, whether it's a compliment or complaint. We're here for them, so we want to learn from our mistakes and we want to do better wherever we can. Thank you, Leader.
Absolutely, and thank you, colleagues, for that. I think you bring that together, those important points, really well there. So, are there any further comments? No? In that case, colleagues, are we content to accept the recommendations of officers and endorse the revised policy? Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that. We'll move on then to item number 5 on our agenda today, which is our COVID-19 response and recovery update. And I think this has been a long journey, hasn't it, for us all? And this report is an update on the council and partners' response to the COVID-19 crisis, supporting our residents and businesses to comply with the current restrictions and progress, and report back on progress in our strategic recovery aims and corporate plan. For Newport City Council, this really has been an unprecedented period of time where we've been faced with many difficult decisions and have seen our residents and businesses across all of our wards impacted by COVID and the restrictions to protect the most vulnerable in our communities. There's not been one person who hasn't been impacted by this pandemic. We've seen councillors, officers and our strategic partners in Health, Newport Live, Shared Resource Service, Newport North and other service providers, including Welsh Government, coming together to solve emerging issues, finding innovative and new ways of delivering our services and supporting those who need our help. The Council also knows that there is more that we can and will do to support people and businesses out of the crisis. So just considering then our progress to date, colleagues, and as you'll recall, we did ask for this to be a standing item on our Cabinet reports because it's so important that not only we monitor our progress in terms of the response, but also in terms of our recovery as well. So since our previous report in April, further restrictions have been eased, enabling residents and businesses to slowly return back to normal routines. With outdoor hospitality and activities reopening and other businesses being open since April, it's important that we support our local businesses and economy across Newport to provide a sustainable and successful economy for the future. I think we're all really proud here in Wales of the success that we've had with our vaccination programme. So this continues to progress across the age groups and there is still some way to go. However, we've made great progress and I'm delighted here in Wales, in Newport particularly, that our young people in that under 30 category age group have started to get their appointments for their vaccinations as well. That is an outstanding achievement by the Welsh Government and the National Health Service here in Wales. So we're really proud of that progress, and we're also proud of the way the partners have engaged with us on this. So I'd really like to highlight the role that our partners in faith communities have played in this, particularly the mosque, in enabling the vaccination programme to run through there, so we've been able to reach more people. However, this doesn't mean that we can just return back to how things were pre-COVID. As we've seen in countries such as Brazil and India, who've significantly suffered, it's also really important that we remain vigilant in keeping to social distancing. And I think I'd really like to pause here, colleagues, and emphasise this. So we've seen a number of cases in certain areas here in Newport, which are emerging not because of any breakdown in any system, but because people have become a little bit more relaxed. And what is happening is that in some cases people are not adhering to those all-important social distancing rules. And it's really important, colleagues, and I can't stress this strongly enough. If people do find that they have been asked to isolate, they must follow that guidance and isolate. There is support there to help people with this. People shouldn't be financially disadvantaged because of it. However, we are seeing an increase in the number of cases of COVID within Newport because people are not following the simple and basic rules of social distancing and self-isolating when requested to do so. It's absolutely important, if we are going to continue in the direction that we're continuing, enabling businesses to reopen and people to go back about their normal lives, it is critically important that we all follow these very simple rules. Please, my plea to the public is please remain vigilant in keeping to social distancing. And I say that particularly in relation to some areas in the north of Newport, my own area as well. So to people in my own community and people in the neighbouring communities, please remain vigilant. And if you do have symptoms, please get a test. Follow those Public Health Wales guidelines. Now, in spite of all of this and all of these challenges, officers and partners have continued to deliver services across communities in Newport in the last 12 months. We've seen how resilient and resourceful officers have been in working from home, looking after their children, family members and homeschooling. But also those officers, teachers, social services staff have continued, and those who've continued to be out across Newport collecting waste, cleaning our streets, visiting and looking after the most vulnerable in the city. Our staff, our officers have kept the city going, while at the same time we must never forget that they've been meeting their family commitments as well. And now, colleagues, we're also looking forward in terms of shaping how our services are delivered sustainably in the future. This involves a range of whole different aspects, as we've seen in our COVID recovery plan, and includes looking at new ways of working, developing models that will enable staff and service users to use technology and our buildings differently. Over the last month, we've managed to fully reopen all of our schools. So I was delighted that we've been able to do this, because we need to be mindful of the impact that this has had on our children and young people. And I'm absolutely delighted we've been able to get them all back to schools. We've been able to phase in the reopening of our libraries and our community hubs. And we know what support that they give the people, and what accessing those facilities does in terms of helping people as well. And now we're looking at moving towards, of course, providing guidance for the reopening of community centres as well. And I do understand the importance of this to many of our community groups. Colleagues, you will recall that also within our budget this year we've made provision for of £500,000 for a COVID community recovery grant, and it is there for the grassroots. It's there for those community groups to apply to for financial support, and I'd encourage all of our community groups to do so. So we are reopening cautiously. We've been able to support our businesses and support our communities. I was able to take a walk through the city centre this week, and I was delighted with the work that our public protection teams had done, and our business support teams, in terms of advising and supporting the city centre businesses in order to enable them to reopen. And of course, it would be remiss of me not to mention the role that our Newport Now, the Business Improvement District, have played in that, in partnership with us. So congratulations to everybody involved in that, because when I had the privilege to go through the city centre on Friday, I was delighted to see so many people enjoying the newly reopened outdoor hospitality, and well done to all of those businesses that have done their utmost to make that a really positive and enjoyable experience for people. People really did seem to be enjoying themselves. So colleagues, this is the report that I present to you. Again, you know, this is very much a journey, and a journey that we're on together as citizens of Newport. We are going through this process together, side by side. I can't emphasise enough, however, that we can only do this, and we can only continue to make this progress if everybody follows those Public Health Wales guidance. And anybody, if you have any symptoms at all, or you've got any concerns, please take a test, self-isolate, follow those rules, observe the social distancing rules. And finally, I suppose my only comment in relation to that is the vaccination programme is running brilliantly well. It's running fantastically from the Newport Centre, and anybody who's had an opportunity, whether it's through their GP practice or through the mass vaccination centres, will have had a positive experience. Our health professionals and our volunteers are doing a brilliant job of keeping us all safe, so a huge thank you to them. So colleagues, that's the update on the report, and now I'd like to just open for comments. Would anybody like to make any comments? Councillor Truman.
Thank you, Leader. I think the report covers everything here, and a lot of what you said certainly does as well. If ever a community needed to come together, it was when COVID broke. There's no doubt about that. And the citizens of Newport certainly stepped up to the plate. And all businesses, all partners, they've all done their part. We've come a long way, haven't we? And we've come a long way because we've done it with caution. And that's what we've done. But let's continue with caution, because we can see a big light under the tunnel, Leader. And you said yourself, the injections, the programs, inoculations, it's gone really well. It has, and it's moved to, it's well, and people are getting their jabs as well. But as I say, let's proceed with caution. And I thank all those who have done so much to help this. That's all the citizens of Newport, all the services of Newport, all the partners of people who work in Newport. Everybody have done their part in this, and they all need congratulating. And I'm not being patronising, they certainly have. We've all had things got in families through this, all of us have had it. And as we say, we're moving along slowly, but with caution. And all I say is a big thank you to the citizens of Newport.
Thank you, Councillor Truman. Councillor Cochrane.
Yeah, I think, Leader, you summed up brilliantly, really, about all what is needed from everybody. But will you allow me to mention a big thank you to our foster carers looking after our children during this period? They've been absolutely brilliant. It's not easy for anybody, but to have homeschooling, and they weren't part of that before, but we haven't had any issues with them. They've just been real brilliant throughout this period. So again, can I just have a big mention publicly, a thank you our foster carers looking after our children that are in their care. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Cochrane. Would anybody else like to comment? Deputy Leader.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to express my thanks to waste savers, and most people, the citizens of Newport, will have understood that we've had some issues relating to COVID there over the last week or two. And just to say thanks to the people of Newport for understanding that, leaving their recycling out, which was collected, and we are realistically back up to speed. So just a big thank you for that. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Are there any further comments from colleagues? Councillor Rahman.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to also add my thanks to our partners, citizens, residents, and also businesses within Newport for all the work that they've done in tackling this pandemic. It would be remiss of me not to give my thanks to Newport Live. As a board member of Newport Live, they been through a lot with the closure of the theatre, museum, as well as gyms. So I'm glad to see the gyms have started reopening with the leisure centres as well. And from the 17th of May, we hopefully will see the reopening of indoor hospitality with theatres, cinemas and museums as well. But I also want to thank Rodney Parade, giving up their sports ground for the testing centre. And I also want to thank our own council officers who are, as you said, worked throughout the pandemic from home and other difficult circumstances to make sure that the council's services were running, as Councillor Jevons just said, with regards to waste collection as well. So a big thank you for all those involved. And I just want to also highlight the point that you've raised there. There is light at the end of the tunnel there, and we've just had an update from the Anara Bevan Health Board that 48% of those aged between 30 and 39 have had their first dose already, and we're already hearing of those aged 20 to 30 getting their first letters of invitation. So it's exciting, and it's amazing to see that we've managed to move so fast with the vaccination program. But it's also important, as you say, that we remember the restrictions that are still in place, that social distancing is still very, very important, as well as wearing your mask and washing your hands. So all that hasn't gone away, I'm afraid, and unfortunately it's still going to be around. So for us to enjoy the reopening of businesses and reopening of hospitality, we need to make sure we do our part as well. And also, I just want to thank you, Leader, there for the work that you did during the pandemic, making sure our businesses got the support that they needed through the disbursement of the grants. I think we were one of the first, if not the first, authority to send out those grants to business. I know it meant a lot to local businesses in Victoria Ward, and we're seeing that now as we know we're in the height of a election campaign. So we know businesses are mentioning the support and that they had throughout the pandemic. So just want to thank you on that one, Leader, as well.
Thank you, Councillor Rahman. Would anybody else like to comment? Well, thank you for that, colleagues, and listening to your comments there as we were going through that, and certainly looking at the report, it made me reflect on some comments that other councillor colleagues might have made at our last council meeting when commenting on the cabinet meetings. And what I would say to those and anybody else who may wish to comment on how our cabinet meetings are run, in that, yes, we are here to challenge. And we do challenge robustly, but we're also here to acknowledge work that's done well and the efforts that people have made. We've been through a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and we've been through it together. And it's really important that we acknowledge the efforts that everybody has made to get us through this. And I make no apology for giving public thanks to all of those citizens, officers, partners and stakeholders who've worked together with us to help us to get to the point where we are today. So thank you everyone for that. And thank you colleagues for acknowledging that as well. So are members content to agree the report? Thank you very much for that, colleagues. We move on then to item number 10 on our agenda today, which is the Brexit update report. You can find this in pages 97 to 104 of your packs. And this is again another standing item in terms of our agenda, and it's an update on the progress in the post-Brexit trade arrangements since the 31st of December 2020. Now, colleagues, as you'll be aware, the UK left the European Union and the single market on the 31st of December 2020. Businesses from the UK and EU are now having to comply with the new customs arrangements. Since our last report in April, Newport Council has launched its webpage on the Council's website for charities, local community groups and education providers, including colleges and universities, to apply for UK community renewal funding. And as colleagues will be aware, this is part of the replacement financial framework being implemented by the UK government. So the deadline for applications for this is the Friday the 21st of May, and then those applications will be assessed and shortlisted for submission to the UK government by the 18th of June 2021. Now, on the community renewal funding itself, what I would like to do is take the opportunity to encourage providers and community groups, charities to apply for this. But I'd also like to say a huge thank you to our communications team for the graphics that they've designed. They've made this information very accessible and is certainly circulating widely on social media. So thanks very much to our comms team for the work that they've done on that. Now, the City Council is also exploring potential projects that could benefit from the Levelling Up funding, and these bids will be submitted to the UK Government by the 18th of June 2021. As I mentioned previously, colleagues, in terms of the Levelling Up funding that the UK government has introduced in order to replace any structural funds that we may have benefited from. This is a competitive bidding process. So we've been through this previously. Whilst we will prepare a bid for the Levelling Up Fund, there is absolutely no guarantee that the UK government will choose to make that funding available to us. It is a competitive process. However, we will continue to participate within that process. Now, Newport City Council and partners are continuing to support residents living in Newport with the EU Settled Scheme before the 30th of June deadline, and anyone who hasn't applied should do so, and please encourage your friends and family members to do so as well. We're here to help you, we're here to support you. There's advice and guidance available to those who have concerns or need further assistance in applying. And this is my plea to the public, really. Newport is a diverse city. We've grown, our communities have grown over the years because of all people from different backgrounds that we've welcomed into our city, and we continue to do the same. So to all of our EU citizens who are living and working here, we're here to support you because we recognise the contribution that you make to our communities and to the prosperity of the city. Please, if you do need assistance with this, come forward because we can help you. Now, the Council has also seen an increase in the number of individuals and families with no recourse to public funds requiring support and assistance. We are working with partners to support those presenting themselves to the Council in order to ensure that they are able to access the services that they need. And colleagues, if you look at your packs, you'll be able to see in Appendix 1, the report does provide full details across the areas that we've been covering through the work of the Task and Finish group on this. So I think that concludes my overview of our progress to date. Would anybody like to comment? Okay, so members, are you content then in that case to agree the report? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for that. That takes us to the final item on our agenda today, which is our Cabinet Work Programme. You can find this on page 105 to 112. It's our monthly report on the work programme, and members content with this as it's set out here in the report. Okay. Well, there we are then. Thank you all very much for that. That draws our Cabinet meeting to a close today. So thank you all, colleagues, for your participation in the meeting, and thank you all very much, certainly from me personally, for your ongoing and continued support. I really do value that, so thank you very much, colleagues, and take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.